Good morning, everyone, from London, from a park in Shoreditch. Myself and Joshua are down in the Big Smoke, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Thursday, the 17th of October, and we're sharing a microphone, guys.
Couldn't find a laptop, a cafe that allowed us to use our laptop.
No.
So here we are, improvising to hopefully give people what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know if we're sounding okay, folks, if we need to adjust to the microphone or what have you. But good to be alongside you this morning to talk all things Rangers. We had a live event last night at the Volley. Big shout out to Mark and who owns the Volley, and also to Mark Haley, who's a super guest, great storyteller, and to you all, everyone that attended last night. It was a great night, Joshua.
It was. I'm just laughing at Robert saying, "What is going on?" And Robert, I agree with you. It was a good night, really good night. Mark was in great form, and good to talk to some of the guys down here about Rangers past and present. So, a fair amount of chat about, a lot of interesting topics, didn't we? We got into playing a back three. Mark Haley's thoughts on Cyril Dessers, talked about Clement's system, talked about his glory days, etc., etc. So, it was a great night. Yeah. Really good. And if you are in London, the Volley is an excellent place to watch football.
Yeah, absolutely superb. So, great night had by all. Headkeeper gets in touch. He notices that sign behind us. The sign says, "What's your ginger nuts, Derek?" There's squirrels, rife with squirrels here in smack bang in Shoreditch. But let's talk all things Rangers. The big news, of course, last night when we were about to go live at the Volley was the interim chairman's statement. The open letter, Joshua. So I'm going to read it. He's urged Rangers fans to stop using pyrotechnics now at all matches. So I'll read this open letter in full if you haven't read it, folks. It says, having been in the role of interim chairman for around a month now, I wanted to give supporters an update on matters across the club. It is great to be back in our Ibrox home, where domestically we have taken maximum points and no goals conceded. Of course, there are some finishing works to be undertaken in the Copeland. We continue to thank supporters there who have been disrupted more than most for their ongoing patience. At its core, the Copeland project was designed to create a new first-class facility for our disabled supporters. It has been heartening to hear their extremely positive feedback thus far on the new disabled sections, with an enormous difference to the matchday experience for the supporters now housed there. After a fantastic result in Malmo, we're all disappointed with the Europa League result against Lyon, but I was proud to see the supporters staying with Philippe and the team until the final whistle. The biggest disappointment of that evening, however, was the actions of a small minority of supporters whose use of pyrotechnics at the match has seen the club fined €13,750 by UEFA. This is in addition to a €19,000 fine for a similar incident in the match with Malmo. My message is the use of pyrotechnics must stop, and stop now at all our matches, home and away. Not only could the repercussions become ever larger for the club, many supporters have difficulty coping with the effects of pyrotechnics, whether that be the smoke or loud bangs they produce. It is desperately unfair for any Rangers supporter to come to a match and be affected in such manner. It goes on to say, away from the matches, I can confirm Director of Football Operations Craig Robertson will leave in the coming weeks to pursue new opportunities. We must thank Craig for his contribution in several roles since he joined the club in 2016, and we wish him well in his future endeavours. With Craig moving on, I have seen some reports of the club being without leadership. I can assure you that that is not the case with George Letham and myself, who have a deep knowledge of business and our great club, working tirelessly alongside our executive management team to continue to drive the club forward. Niels Coppin, our Director of Football Recruitment, highlighted in an interview last week that planning for the January transfer window is well underway. On the commercial front, Karim Varane and his team have delivered an outstanding new front of shirt sponsorship deal with the Kindred Group. Well, I've been really pleased with the work done in such a short space of time by Elior on the catering front. The financial uplift in both deals, together with the strong financial oversight and controls sanctioned action by CFO James Taylor, will positively benefit the club going forward. Of course, we are determined to fill the chairman and CEO roles as quickly as possible, and the recruitment consultants have already produced shortlists of very strong and experienced candidates for both roles. Well, that is ongoing, Our absolute priority is to support Philippe in any way we can ensure the men's first team can continue to build upon the progress we have seen from them in recent weeks. We must thank Philippe for standing tall during these difficult months and for dealing with non-football matters on the club's behalf. Finally, my thanks to you all, our fantastic supporters. You are truly the most loyal support in world football. You deserve the best, and we will do everything in our power to help deliver success in the months and years ahead. Wow, that was long-winded.
Could have went and got another coffee.
Yeah. Thoughts on that, Joshua? I think the big news, of course, the issue about pyrotechnics. That was a clear message from John Gilligan there. Stop them.
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, Rangers supporters, I think they've been in a position where they've not heard enough from the leadership at whatever level, whether that be since, I guess, James Bisgrove, he was doing those kind of, a few times a year he was doing the feedback with the supporters at Edmonton House. I don't know how many times that actually happened in the end because of a few different circumstances, but that took place. Aside from that, you've not had, regular chairman updates, whatever. So I guess on one hand, you've got to say fair enough to John Gilligan, who's done that press conference, who is trying to communicate. I think the cynical viewpoint would say that that's just an overall update, and the main point, as you say, is the use of pyrotechnics. Look, it is an issue that the club have to try and resolve because they're going to get fined as a result of it, as is materialised. But the issue is at the moment, even John Gilligan, I think, who's come in, who everyone knows that he's a very successful businessman. He's someone who's had a very significant role in a very significant chapter of Rangers history, and he's a season ticket holder, a Rangers fan. Even the goodwill of someone like that, because of people's frustrations about different matters, the executive level, which we spoke about so far, Derek, and I think at the moment it's fair enough to say that really does need a review compared to this time last year, because the people who set the vision of this football board, the people who kind of led the restructuring process within Rangers, and now aren't there anymore. And there's a lot of roles to fill, not just that CEO role and that chairman role as well. Obviously, him and John Gilligan and George Latham are in the building at the moment in a very acting role and a hands-on role. We've obviously had on the website over the last couple of days that exclusive interview with Niels Coppin, where he goes into detail about how Rangers are trying to fix their recruitment, how they're trying to fix their player trading model. And I think there was an equal measure within that of some interesting and exciting ideas, and also admission of what's gone wrong. People need to hear that, because if you kind of put your head in the sand and say, you know what, we'll keep doing what we've done before, you're going to get the same results. All that to say, I still think there's a lot of frustration at what has happened at executive level over the last number of months, and that's going to come out when a statement like that drops in an international break.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Yeah. I like the pyro, I've got to admit, but if it's going to cost the club cash and fines, and I can understand why John Gilligan's come out. Some of the comments coming here sort of in support of the chairman. Maka with a point here, he says that's 25k that could be put to good use elsewhere. I wish the fans would wise up. But let us know in the comments, folks. I was in that away end in Malmo, and it was fantastic to be in. But I can understand why there is frustration.
It's a contentious issue.
It is a contentious. Well, Johnny was phoning me when I was reading that statement. We know what he thinks about the old pyro, and
there is validity to that as well. There's a golden retriever walking towards us. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah. Headkeeper with a point here says the pyro is horrific if you're downwind of it. Totally get that as well. So, listen, it's a clear message from the interim chairman at this point in time with regards to that. And Martin with the point as well says pyros will get us banned in Europe. That's the thing. There's a concern as well that we might get partial stand closures as a result of this, Joshua.
Could happen. I'm totally distracted by this dog in front of us.
Yeah.
Good boy.
Yeah, we are in a park, so we are live, as you can tell here. But Kyle with a point here, he says no pyro, no party is what he says as well. Listen, as a spectacle, it looks fantastic, but I get all the points of view with regards to it and wanting it banned from football stadia. So that is what John Gilligan had to say about that. Moving on to other matters, of course. Rangers do play in the Europa League. It's now 2 dogs coming up here, as you can hear there. And, of course, the scene...
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah. Rangers are back in action this coming Sunday, Joshua. And, of course, going to Rugby Park. We will hear from Philip Clement tomorrow when he conducts his pre-match press conference. It is tomorrow.
Thursday? Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, it is a big match. We were discussing this last night about the enormity of this game, Joshua. 12 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday down at Rugby Park. It's not one that it's one that's slightly apprehensive about, I've got to say.
Yeah, Thomas is saying I'm a canine phobe, which I think means scared of dogs. I'm not, Thomas. I love dogs. We both have a dog, don't we?
Yeah.
So we're there just to dispel that rumor. What did you ask me?
More dogs on the show. But the magnitude of the game.
Magnitude of the game. Oh, it feels like a really significant month because Rangers have Kilmarnock away, Rangers have Aberdeen away, and Rangers have Olympiacos away. Of those 3 games, I think if you were to ask me now, Derek, where do you think Rangers can get a result? It would maybe be Olympiacos away because you trust them a little bit more still in European competition, not least because of that Malmo game as well. The Kilmarnock game, I think, and Aberdeen games are so significant. They come within 10 days of one another. Stevie wrote on the website last week that these games are attached with, either optimism or crisis, and I think that's pretty fair. You take the first 7 games of the season, if you're just talking about the league, and there's been a few encouraging signs here and there. There's been a couple of discouraging signs here and there as well. And Clement has spoken about Rangers being a better version of themselves in October and November. 12 o'clock against Kilmarnock on a Sunday. It doesn't fill me with optimism. Equally, after an international break, you're pretty fresh, I'd imagine, as a group of players, depending how many are actually coming back from international breaks. How many will Clement not want to risk on that plastic pitch, and how's he going to approach that game? What I keep coming back to, speaking to people about this game on Sunday, Derek, is this is where this is where it kind of started to go wrong. Rugby Park, when Rangers won there in the end of February, that James Tavernier goal, that Tom Lawrence goal, that Jack Butland save at 1-0, and you started to think then Clement that was almost his toughest test yet that week, wasn't it? Because he beat Kilmarnock away, he'd beaten Hearts at home, and then it was Motherwell at home that kind of proved Rangers undoing. Now he's spoken at the end of last season to death, but I think there is something symbolic about trying to going back there to try and build some momentum, because momentum is something that Clement's not been able to recapture, I would argue, since that game at the end of February. And although Kilmarnock aren't in great form, haven't started the season brilliantly, it's always difficult, really difficult going there, and psychologically, not least because I think people expect it to be difficult going there as well. So I think it's a game that, as Stevie said, alongside that Aberdeen game, optimism or crisis is going to come out of it. Because Rangers really, I know Aberdeen and Celtic are playing one another, so points will be dropped somewhere, but Rangers really can't afford to fall further behind at this stage of the season as well.
Yeah, the point here from the Jers 56 sums it up for me. He says this month will make or break Clement. I think it will. Joshua, he has big matches coming up. I'm not necessarily overly concerned about next week in the Europa League. I think that will take care of itself. But Kilmarnock we touched on. St Mirren, you'd like to think they can beat them at home. Rangers have got the semi-final against Motherwell at Hampden in the League Cup. The Aberdeen game on the horizon as well. They play Celtic this weekend. There will be points dropped from one of those. It's a big opportunity on Sunday then to close that gap at the top.
Yeah, no, I think this month does have that type of feeling. And listen, the reality is that I think the mood at this juncture, and obviously this time last year, Clement had already come into the job. But if you speak to people, it's not as if I don't think the thinking internally is that this is a make or break month, right? I think very much the thinking internally is this is the manager we've got who's inherited the job in a difficult situation. Yes, we need to keep seeing improvement, but we need to do the same thing for a concerted period of time. We can't change a manager, because Rangers have had a different manager at this time of the year for the last 4 years. And whatever you think about each one of those managers' different credentials, changing that consistently, unless you have a really well-run football club, which Rangers have not been from a footballing point of view, that's not going to work. But I think where it feels make or break, where it feels so significant for him, is he needs to. fans will come at it from different points of view, won't they? And some will look at it and think, do you know what, he has had the job in difficult circumstances. Yes, the style of play maybe hasn't been great, but it's going to take him time. Others will say, okay, maybe he's had to do all these extra things aside from the football, but I want to go and watch the football and be entertained and see where it's going, see eventually how it could lead Rangers back to the top of the table. So I think it feels especially significant this month with that in mind, because these two games are the type of games that, will probably show where the team are. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. He said prior to the break he expects to have Danilo and Ridvan back in contention. That'll be a boost, of course. I can't see them starting in any way, but be good to have those back, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you need well Ridvan. I think Jeffrey keeps playing.
Yeah.
And I don't personally subscribe that much to the push Jeffrey up a line. I think it probably will happen at points because of the lack of options on the left. You see, if you're playing at home, you see that St Mirren game. St Mirren a week on Sunday, isn't it, at home?
Yeah.
That game, I think, will suit. If Barami's playing off the left there and you've got a kind of a Lawrence in that almost deeper number 10 role you're now seeing Rangers use. Jeffrey's high and wide on the left wing. That's fine because Barami's moving in field. If you're playing away from home, in like European games in particular, I don't think you want Barami stuck out there.
No.
You know, so Clement's going to have to, I think, be clever in how he, again, adapts around this injury situation. But probably I would argue what we've not seen him do enough is alter little things here and there to maybe change the shape somewhat when these injuries do happen. So, I can't remember what you asked me initially, but significant game.
Yeah, on Ridvan's return, Blue Nose John says Jeffrey has to be played left wing when Ridvan is back. And just on the issue of sacking managers around this time in recent years, Craig Gallagher with the point says higher spend and sack has to stop somewhere. It's a vicious circle is what he has to say about that. We're going to discuss, of course, there's a point coming in here from Thomas saying 2 more windows required for Big Phil. He's had 2 windows already, Joshua. Your interview with Niels Coppin was very interesting when he discussed at length about the recruitment and what he's trying to do with the club and the amount of players that they were close. What was it? 62 players.
Well, it was at the final stage. So it's showing that, I guess it's trying to, from his point of view, show the extent of research that will go at why Rangers didn't panic buy a number 6 on deadline day, for example. The thinking being that, I go into a little bit of detail in the piece on it, Derek, but Barami was a deal, and we've spoken about this before in a piece before, but Barami was a deal where he's 25 years old. There was a recognition that alongside these young players, Rangers need a few marquee signings, if you like, a few players who are ready to contribute now. I think everyone can see with Barami that he is a player who has quality and is going to improve those around him, and you arguably needed a couple more of those in this window in certain positions. But he's also someone that Diomande is another example that's in the piece, who was scouted, the subject of 20 individual scouting reports over 3 years by Rangers before he signed. The idea being that a player should arrive with as few doubts as possible towards the end of the window. Could Rangers, and speaks about this in the piece, could you then break your wage structure to sign someone short term who's a 29-year-old in one position? Maybe so, but the difficulty I think that they've had in the summer window in particular is the fact that this is a long-term problem. This is a long-term squad building problem, and the only way you get out of it is long-term thinking. So hypothetically, if you went and broke your wage structure, let's say on deadline day, for a player who maybe the opportunity materialised late, and you didn't know that much about him, and you thought we just need someone in this position, you probably stunt Raskin and Barron's development and value. You maybe break your wage structure, and you just keep pushing these issues down the line. So I think what Rangers have done is, there was always going to be short-term pain with a rebuild. I don't think it's been a full rebuild, but I think it has been a fair chunk of that squad has been rebuilt. If you think of the wages it's left with, Goldson and Barisic and Lundstrom and Ruth and Jack, etc. More needs to be done in that area, and I agree with Thomas. I think you need another summer window to really phase more players out and alter and rebuild the core of that squad more. But again, as I think we said at the end of that piece, there's a quote I put in from, I think it's Simon Rolfs, who's the Bayer Leverkusen sporting director, and he said, in football you can plan 5 years ahead as long as you win at the weekend. And that's probably a very descriptive way of, Rangers will have time to build and put the building blocks in place, so long as the product is there of X number of these players are good, a good percentage of these signings are working, and that's materialising on the pitch as well. So you need players like Chefty to come in and hit the ground running as a 20-year-old who will be sold on, you'd imagine, for more money one day, to show that player trading model is working for other young players to come to the club, but also because ultimately it's only going to work if Rangers win and Rangers are successful.
What do you make of this point from Darren? It says, Nick Coppin, Director of Football. He's Director of Football Recruitment, of course. Is there much difference, do you think, in the roles? Is he pretty much a de facto Director of Football right now, do you reckon?
Well, I think, to Darren's point, is it Darren? Yeah, let's take it back to this time last year. I think Coppin's appointment came in officially in November. It might have been December, I can't remember. And I keep going back to this football board, this topic of the football board. But it's important because the idea was you had a CEO and you had a lot of different departmental heads. Coppin being head of Director of Football Recruitment. The idea being within that instead of having a sporting director who's maybe in charge of a lot of different departments, you had a recruitment specialist. And again, Coppin goes into this in the interview when he's discussing his role at PSV, where he started at PSV, where he worked himself up to as one of their senior international scouts, and then effectively assisting their sporting director as well. So that was kind of a blend of the role he came in to do at Rangers. The difficulty you've got at the moment is only 3 of those people on the football board remain. So it's very valid to ask, well, what is that? What is the structure of that? And I think the biggest point, if you look at Rangers football structure at the moment, Derek, and you look at what have they got wrong in the last number of years, and I would argue they've not, what's the phrase? They've not safeguarded themselves enough against managers. And what I mean by that is managers have been able to come in and imprint their philosophy to a degree, and to varying degrees really influence recruitment. And then when you've had 4 different managers in 4 different seasons, that's not going to work. Yeah. Who at the moment has jurisdiction over the manager? Who would hire or fire a manager? I don't think that is covered sufficiently, I would say, in the structure at the moment. So I think there's an argument that model should be explored. There should be greater powers handed in an off-field role to someone, to have that with someone with football knowledge who is in either sporting director of football, or an increased capacity role, who then does have more responsibility for example, who would lead the next managerial search at the moment. Yeah, and that is a big issue. Now, if you have that football board with a CEO in place and you have enough football knowledge on that board, I think in theory it could work. But the issue is you've only got 3 of those individuals here at the moment, when 7 were in place at the start of the year. Yeah, so it's a good point. Yep.
Thank you for that. Colin says, bet you're glad it's dry weather. Absolutely, buddy, and it's roasting down here.
It's actually quite nice down out.
It's London's got its own climate down here, but I never packed the sun cream, so I'm slightly concerned about that. But anyway, the signings that have been made in the summer, Joshua, we'll run through how you think they have performed. They've been in the building for a wee while now. I think standouts for me, Chefty, Connor Barron, I think are the 2 have done really well, hit the ground running. Robin Propper's came in as well. We've seen Barrie on deadline day. Hamza Igaman, we've seen glimpses of him as well. Oscar Cortez, we know all about, and his injury issues, unfortunately. How do you assess who's the standout performers for you, and who do we need to see more from?
Okay, well, let's start with Chefty. I feel like I've spoken about Chefty to death, so we won't go too much on him, but I think he's the exact model of player that Rangers should be trying to sign. I think he's brave on the ball. He's only 20 years old and he has a lot of variation to his game, and he's fun to watch, and Rangers have not had enough fun players to watch. What feels like forever. So and Barron similarly, I think I'd like to see Raskin in that role at times, not least because I think Raskin suits that role better than playing higher up the pitch. I think you've got to protect Barron to a degree, but equally you've got to say started really, really well. Made that mistake against Lyon. That was always going to happen at some point. Taking on a lot of responsibility early. Again, you'd expect him to get better, the fact that he's only 22 years old. Robin Propper, the only concern you have about Propper is his pace could be exposed, and I think in the St Johnstone game, John Souttar had to do a lot of good defending to cover that. Maybe domestically you get away with that because St Johnstone do have a lot of pace up front more than other teams. I think in European football you can't do what Rangers did against Lyon yet. You've either got to play Castle and Weirjo and change your shape slightly, play Sterling at centre back alongside one of those 2 players. I just think in big spaces neither of those players have the pace. But apart from that, I think Prop is someone who reads the game well. Is a more of a, what I keep coming back to about him is he can invite pressure on the ball, which I don't think Rangers have had enough in their centre halves. He's allowing Suter to play on the right. Domestically, I think that can be a good partnership.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you agree, in European competition, I think you need to do
back
something
three for
different.
me. Yeah, I think I'd like Rangers to go to a back three. I'd like Cash and Weirjo to get more game time starting on Sunday at right back. I can't imagine he's going to change his shape for Kilmarnock, but against quality opposition, I'd like Rangers to go to a back three, solidify things certainly in the middle. And I've liked the look to Cash and Weirjo so far. He's another one I want to see more from.
Very comfortable in the ball, and that's what when we did a piece on him with is now remind me who's in charge of the Dutch under-21 team, the ex-player
Michael Reisiger.
Yes, and spoke to him and another one of Casemiro former managers, and they were just saying that look, this is a guy who's spent almost his whole academy years in Ajax, where he's used to having the ball, he's comfortable in the ball. And I think that Malmo game when he was playing out of position, no, he wasn't really playing out of position, but you thought, okay, he's a right footer playing at left back. He was just really comfortable on the ball. And as we've mentioned before, I think he's more of a natural fullback to move inside the pitch. Rangers don't really have that otherwise. So the question is, where do you play all these different players? I think there needs to be consistency in where Dujon Sterling plays.
Yes.
But Casim Weirjo has done more than enough to get merit more game time.
You start them on Sunday?
I don't think he will. No,
I know.
But
I know.
I think Tavernier can become a bit of a lightning rod. Listen, we could do a whole podcast on it.
I know.
At points, he's carried a lot for the team when no one else around him has done. At points, I think he's been let down by the structure around him, which has resulted in players like him having to go to the well and play 55, 60 games and carry a lot of responsibility. Equally, at the moment, I think he's 32, about to be 33 years old. Play him in games that suit him. Play him. And you've got other options in the Europa League. Take him at the firing line a bit. Rotate, like you said, you were going to rotate. Maybe Clement just felt he needed to get through that first couple of months of the season before he did it. But I think it makes sense to rotate in that position. Just if you're looking at that from a pure football point of view, not about captaincy, not about the overall debate, which will rage on and on. I'd be tempted to rotate regularly in there.
Yeah. An interesting comment from here says, is Joshua playing golf after this? Golf looking attire
this
on
is
there,
just
Joshua?
my Shoreditch get up. No golf courses in London, is there?
Yeah. And Jim Brown says, cracking top Derry. What club is that for? It's actually AC Milan, buddy. One of the old AC Milan tops you can see here. I'll just stand up.
Wearing it to impress Haley.
He was very impressed actually. So super stuff. Fast Cherny's another one. There's a comment came in there about him. He left on a high after his brace against St Johnstone. I thought he spoke very honestly after the game as well. He's someone that had struggled prior to that game. And I think he's another one that jury maybe still out. A lot of folks saying he's maybe a one-trick pony as his physicality suited to the Scottish game. What have you made of Cherny so far?
What have I made of Cherny so far? I would say that St Johnstone game suited him because he wasn't stuck on the right wing. So I think if he's on the right wing, he's a player who probably needs a right back to go. We'll give him the overlap because you're right. If he's stuck on the right wing, I don't think I've not seen yet enough examples of him really having the power to go on the outside of defenders, which makes him predictable on his left foot. Because I guess what coaches would say about a winger is if you go down the line, when you move inside on your left foot, you make those situations more unpredictable. The St Johnstone game, Diomande played closer to him. I think Diomande's role is something we still need to discuss because
he's coming some criticism, hasn't he?
And I think at points he's playing a role that maybe benefits the team a little bit more, but not him. But anyway, if you look at the first goal that Cherny scores against St Johnstone, where's Diomande? He's the one who's actually made the overlap, which has allowed Cherny to move inside. I think he's more comfortable starting wide, but moving inside to that position. So, but again, the difficulty is because you've not got a winger on the other side of the pitch who can maybe hug the touchline at the moment. Is there more of a requirement for Cherny to do that on the other side? So, his confidence should be boosted by those two goals against St Johnstone. The more he plays inside the pitch, I think the better, because when we've seen him out wide, I don't think he's been as effective. And when he played against Motherwell, his debut, you thought, I thought he started brilliantly in that game. And since he has looked a little bit like he's playing within himself. And again, to go back to a piece we did with one of his former managers when he joined, he said he needs that support from the crowd. He needs that belief. He needs a belief from his manager. I'm scoring those goals against St Johnstone. Maybe that, because he's been now, I guess, at the depths of missing that chance against Leon and experiencing and giving back to the Ibrox crowd some of his thoughts. Maybe that will allow him now to feel a bit more settled and kick on. I don't know. We'll see.
Not the best route to go down that. But we'll wrap up there, folks. But thank you for tuning in as ever. We'll be back to normal broadcasting tomorrow. We'll be in my front room, and I should be joined by Adam. He had to work his proper job today, so hence why Joshua has joined me in this lovely London park to talk.
Great time, haven't we?
We have had a great time. Yeah, it's been absolutely superb. On the website this morning, Chris has interviewed the Serbian Zidane, Dragan Mladenovic. Remember him? So you can go and have a read of that. And we'll be back tomorrow. Big day tomorrow, of course, as we touched on earlier. We'll hear from Philip Clement ahead of that game against Kilmarnock. So we'll have all the usual morning briefing as well as the post-match press conference reaction video for those of you that are Rangers Review extra members as well. So if I don't speak to you a little later on, which I don't imagine we will unless something dramatic happens, then enjoy the rest of your Thursday and we'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.